Welcome to the Everyday Awesome Project, where we bring you inspirational stories and game-changing strategies to live your most awesome life. Hey, superstars, welcome back. Polly here.
And Sam Pruitt, what's up, beautiful humans?
Today is all about your hormones and your power, what women need to know. How about this topic for us, right?
I'm having a hot flash just thinking about it.
Have we been talking about this a little bit or a lot of bit lately with people in our lives? And I was telling somebody, I was like, oh, yeah, you should go. Samantha, I'm sure we recorded an episode. And then I looked back at our episodes and I'm like, I'm sure we've talked about this, but never done like a whole episode on this. So this is all about the sex hormones. As you know, we did our last episode was on the feel-good hormones, right? Dopamine and serotonin. Today is about what, Sam?
I'm sexy and I know it. People think that they are hormones that just are specific to your sex organs and your sexuality and your sexual function, etc. That is a misnomer. Radically inaccurate. We should not even call them sex hormones. Okay, it is true that based on if you're born male or female, that the hormonal makeup and the organ system that you have that produces said hormones is unique to that sexual identity at birth. But that don't mean shit. These hormones.
There's a lot more going on.
So critical.
A lot more to the story.
Yeah, and I've been pretty hardcore into this for like maybe the last 5 years, because my personal story, I really should have gotten more involved and more educated earlier. So that's why I guess I'm so passionate about it now, is I feel like, hey, don't do what I did. By the way, this is a common thread in my life. Yeah. Don't do what I did.
Let me
this is why I'm such example. A good coach. Don't fuck it up like I did, okay?
Totally. And now we're the evangelist. We are like women, like we want to bring the hormone and the menopausal conversation out of the freaking closet. It's like talk about it, people. Talk about it, you know? Yeah.
Yes, talk about it. And last year I got certified under Dr. Stacy Sims. It was specifically hormones, perimenopause and menopausal women, and body function in fitness and health and performance. And I have all that knowledge, and that's a whole other subcategory, if you will, deeper dive over here. We'll have to do it at a later date. Today we're basically like introducing the 3 types of hormones. Actually, there's technically 4 because there's a couple different types of estrogens. And then why should you care?
Yeah. So
why should you care?
So let's go into the 3 top, like tell us what the 3 are, what are we going to talk about? And then what do they do? Like just a little overview on, like a cliff notes, because people have probably heard these names, and maybe if there's anything unusual that like people don't know this, so share with us the 3.
Well, most people have awareness around estrogen, and there's different types of estrogen, and they have different functions in your body. But there is a bucket called estrogen, okay? And then there is progesterone, which is the counter to estrogen, the balancing hormone to estrogen. And progesterone has its own tasks and responsibilities in the body, just like the estrogens do. Yeah. And then there's testosterone. Okay, and this is the hottest thing in women's health right now, because forever it was thought of as a men's hormone, that men made testosterone, women didn't, which is complete bullshit. And also men make estrogen. They don't just make testosterone. So we make all the sex hormones, we just make them in varying degrees, and at different times in our life, they serve different purposes. But again, they're like elemental to the foundation of this physical body I'm walking around in the world trying to operate with and stay healthy.
Yeah. It's surprising so in my 20s, I had a thyroid, I'll call it a malfunction or dysfunction, right? And that's when I learned like how much thyroid interacts with all these organs and all these things, regulates your blood pressure, all these things, your body temperature. It's like, damn, you get out of whack with that, shit gets off, And so I think estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, they surprisingly, sexual function, or think of your ovaries, or you stop bleeding, menopause, things like that. But you've told me things that I was like, seriously? So let's start with estrogen. So estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Start with estrogen. Why is it important beyond like sex hormones or reproduction?
Yeah, and just another quick side note on why they're called sex hormones is because in Western medicine, drugs have been created to, offset or support, or however you want to do it, the dysfunction of these hormones. And those drugs are generally categorized by sexual function. So, for example, if a female is trying to get pregnant and make babies, whether they're successful or not, or whatever, generally we look at their hormones to see if they're functioning or not. So it's how Western medicine has taught us and educated us around therapies, and especially drug therapies, to cure or solve reproductive nature issues or sexual function nature issues. And that's why we think of them as sex hormones. But we don't go into our regular doctor or MD or our naturopath or whoever we see and we're like, hey, we'd like to examine all the hormones and make sure that these hormones are meeting all the systems of the body. They don't look at us like that, so we don't think of ourselves that way. Yeah. So that's the empowering part, is we need to understand that all of these have a role, and it's our responsibility to understand the role and then go forward proactively with those conversations. So I just wanted to kind of double rant on that.
Yeah. So estrogen, a lot of, I think it comes into a conversation, and it's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking like, actually, I know somebody, like a lot of women, as they go into perimenopause and menopause, the estrogen levels start to fluctuate and sort of drop is what we typically see. And I know a couple of women that actually have an abundance, like too much estrogen, right? Like they've got the antithesis of it. And I'm not sure exactly what the causes are of that. But so what are, some implications of estrogen in the body? What function is it helping? What is it tied to? Yeah.
And by the way, all those things do happen. You'll get basically swings. So most females will experience both swings, so the ebbing and the flowing. And it's basically, you have ovaries, right? And your ovaries are going offline. They're slowly dysregulating, and then eventually they completely go offline. They go to sleep. They're no longer serving a purpose. You have only so many eggs and only so many years for the body to have a need for said ovaries. So,
and estrogen is produced from the ovaries, or it's signaled by the body to produce it because ovaries are needed?
It's produced by them.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And you can have other estrogens in your body, stored in your body over your lifetime, that will also sometimes cause what's called estrogen dominance, is sort of a common term for it too. So it does get stored in your body fat. So there's other things that happen with that estrogen circulating, or circulating and unopposed. And that will lead to estrogen dominance, like you just sort of were referring to, where there's too much in the body and it's free circulating and it's wreaking havoc. So that can be a lot of bleeding, a lot of additional body fat all of a sudden, lots of mood swings, lots of hot flashes, lots of really uncomfortable stuff. And that actually can happen in men too, and does happen in men. And sometimes we have to be honest about the conversations of like, what's in our environment? What are we taking in? What's my body composition? What's the overall health of my body? And why do I have so much free circulating estrogen? Yeah. When I say free circulating, I mean that the other hormones haven't come and attached themselves and put that estrogen to work. Okay, progesterone, okay, testosterone, now let's go do something. What's our function in the body? Where are we going to go? Do we have work to do? So and if there's too much of it floating around.
So if you have like twice as much estrogen to progesterone kind of thing, then the estrogen is just free and it's like not doing its job or what it's designed to do because it's not attaching with the others.
You can kind of think of it like a free radical because it causes inflammation too. So it's very pro-inflammatory when you have excess estrogen on board. So in perimenopause, that's a pretty normal state for women to find themselves in. High inflammation, AKA high suffering, right? Like that's where the symptoms are coming from. And then there can be that chasm of the dip where it goes away and now they're depleted. Or you could have, like I had a hysterectomy, so I had my ovaries stayed in, but I lost my uterus to surgery. I opted into that. When I was 43, I had to actually do the math. I was 43! And that's because I was already in perimenopause in my late 30s due to my autoimmune disease. Wow. So lots of women go in early and lots of women go in late. So there is no set timeline for this perimenopausal to menopause, which is a day in your life, postmenopause world. there's no one way, there's no right way, wrong way, there's no number. So we really want to make sure we impart that to women too, is it can be happening at any time,
Hmm.
and you need to have awareness to what's going on in your body.
Yeah, so let's hit the other two just to get them on the table here. So estrogen, I mean, some of the things it impacts: brain health, skin, mood, cardiovascular, bone. You have told me like cellularly, it trickles down and stuff. So progesterone, tell us what is progesterone's function, or what does it impact? Or it sounds like it works a lot with estrogen.
Yeah. And the latest research on estrogen that's coming out that's super cool is about how it affects your microbiome, which is your gut health.
I need to
Of
hear about
course,
that, of course. Yeah.
is everything, as we've discussed 1,000 times about, I'm going to get a shirt, and I heard this shirt
How's
exist.
your gut?
No, it says, my microbiome made me do it. I
Okay.
have to have that shirt. I'm freaking, you need that shirt. You're even
I
you're a bigger
I'm a
nerd than me.
Well, and oh, that's a whole episode right there. That was fascinating because we're basically driven and living by our bugs. Wow. Okay. All right. Let's talk about progesterone. Progesterone. Okay. So
Totally.
I'll just
Totally.
say a couple. So calming effects, right? Sleep support and anxiety. It's related to, let's say,
Soft tissue.
soft
It's
tissue.
really important in soft tissue regeneration and quality of the soft tissue.
So is
So
that like the
that's your
female
joints, and
parts?
it's your tendons, your
Oh,
ligaments that are supporting your joints. It's, what's going on with the quality of my skin.
mm,
But so a lot of women that have estrogen and progesterone imbalances in perimenopause and menopause start having joint issues, pain, more
mm,
tendonitis, more prone to injuries. And it's because of the
mm.
depletion of those hormones to
Oh,
help support the soft tissue. That to me is a really important thing that
ding,
many
ding, ding,
people,
ding.
we'll give a list of experts at the end because the science is there. It's
Yeah.
just you in going into a traditional annual exam, if
Yeah.
women are even doing that, by the way,
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to have these conversations in 15 minutes with a practitioner who's also doing their pelvic exam and their breast exam, right? Like,
Hmm. They're in and
and
out.
then
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not really experts in this a majority of the time because
Good.
they went to school whenever they did. They got the knowledge that was available in the Western medicine space, and they're highly educated in that.
Hmm.
And most of that is disease treatment, or
Hmm.
in this case, it would be the birthing of babies and getting pregnant and all that stuff. And they're experts in that, but they just it's just kind of bizarre to think that that isn't part of the educational program.
Not enough. Yeah. And there's so much coming out about it too. I mean, like
Yeah.
from when a lot of the doctors today got educated and less, I mean, and they're working in their practice. They're like head down with cases and files and insurance and stuff like that. Okay. Let's put the third one on the table. Testosterone. And why? So testosterone, energy, muscle, motivation, libido, confidence, drive, like things you think, masculine energy, right? Like, muscular and stuff. So tell us why are women talking about testosterone these days? Like what's the
And
buzz?
even bone.
Bone.
So, and it's like power output and things of that nature, balance and power output. So, if you think about the whole body, this is all the rage right now because it just got basically FDA approved in Australia. So now
Mm.
50% of the women in perimenopause and menopause in Australia are on testosterone. This is totally normal.
Mm. Mm.
Come over to the USA and we're like, well, that's not approved for women. We got to do a lot more research on that. We just don't know. Really? We just don't know? No,
I
we do
know.
know.
Yeah. And that
But if
just
a
happened to
man
me.
walks in
That
and
just
says,
happened to me. Yeah. That
I
just
know, and I
happened.
want you to share your story. But if a man walks in and says something very simple like, I can't get an erection, hey, no problema. Triple dip
Well,
on you.
actually, okay, so I do want to say if you are looking at it for those purposes, from my experience, so from somebody that I know, two men that I know, I wouldn't call them menopausal, but older, mature, let's say 40 plus. Definitely as the testosterone leaves, the drive, the motivation, the sex, things like that, and the impotence, whatever, like that's very related. And so a lot of them have to go to specialists. Like I knew somebody that would drive 2 hours to a specialist, get shots, and drive back every week, right? And now I know somebody here in San Luis Obispo there's this capsule or some whatever pellets they can put in your butt or something like that lasts for 6 months, like $1,000 for testosterone for 6 months, and people raving about it. I'm not saying do it or whatever like that. I'm just saying some people that I know that it's kind of a thing, a little trendy thing these days.
Well, all these hormones come in oral or topical, and a lot of them can be implanted. that goes
Prescription.
for all the hormones.
Prescription.
That's a whole other side note, and people should kind of look at each one and see, understand how it works in the body and what's going to work for them and all that kind of stuff. But testosterone is very popular for, yeah, lots of reasons. But for women specifically, since we're talking to our female audience right now, also their sexual drive and sexual function and motivation and quality of muscle and quality of bone, all of those things should also be important to them. So I was just kind of saying how interesting it is if a man goes in and asks for something, and they can get these prescriptions. Actually, most MDs will actually prescribe testosterone. They don't have to go into a men's specific doctor. You're talking about people who are, and they're really looking for probably more nuanced conversations or higher doses beyond like what the normal dosage is.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Because they really want to optimize.
Concierge level. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And to be clear, optimizing is what we're talking about. Yeah. So when we say for our females in the audience right now that these hormones are important to your health, can you live without them? Yes, you can. But will you optimize your physical health, your mental and emotional health and well-being, and the quality of your life without them? No, you will not.
Right.
So this is a very personal conversation. And it's a very personal choice. We are not like you and I do whatever the hell we want. Okay. We're not telling anybody what to do. We're just saying these things are available to you. And if you're interested in knowing more, go get educated. Today, we're just going to scratch the surface and figure out what your value system is and align with that. And find practitioners that support your value system. If you're an optimizer, you and I are optimizers, then you're going to go all in on optimizing. Yeah. You know, if you're cool with the cruise, and this is a little bit like how you roll in life, and that's how you feel about your physical body or these things we're talking about, there's no judgment from me. Like, more power to you.
Well, and I think, there's a group that's just the suffering, there's like a subpar, and so I think a lot of what I love the things that we talk about often is like, some people don't know things are available, or some people don't know that that's subpar. Like, no, you're actually, like if we were grading you, it's like your body's not at an A or, C level. You're in a D or an F, right? Some people, when they're an F, they know it, they're redlining, whatever, go get some treatment. But we're like, there's more available, and we want to let people know.
Yeah, well, I'll speak from my own personal story. So I just mentioned that I had a hysterectomy at 43. The surgeon kept my ovaries in, which was a surprise to me, by the way. So the reason I went in is I was bleeding all the time. I was totally anemic. At the time, I was racing and competing and training at a high level in Ironman. And I was running a business. I was a mother, like all these very busy life. And I had an autoimmune disease. So I had a lot going on, right? And really, it was a pain in my rear to just bleed 3 or 4 times a month. And I mean like lots, including that Ironman that year before I went into surgery. I basically bled the whole race. And when I came to the finish line, I was covered in blood all the way down and people were like, and I was like, this is just normal.
Oh, jeez. That's how my body's rolling right now. No.
That's not good.
No.
So he didn't take my ovaries out. And afterwards, he informed me that he didn't take my ovaries out because I was too young to have my ovaries taken. So the ovaries stayed in and proceeded to be the next problem, which was I had polycystic fibroids on my ovaries. I had hormonal chaos going on because the uterus had been removed, but the ovaries were still around, and they were so they were still wreaking havoc. Just, the housing for the baby was taken out. Yeah. But the troublemakers were still hanging out, having a party.
Trying to do their job. They're like,
yeah. And at the time, I really didn't know better. So I went in complaining of just how horrible I felt and all the pain and all the things that were going on. And the doctor said, we'll put you on birth control. That was the solution at that time.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello. First of all, I can't get pregnant. Second of all, artificial synthetic hormones after I've just had a hysterectomy is insanity. Why would I do that? So anyway, that was the solution that was available at the time. So I didn't do hormones for a long time because basically I was labeled as high risk based on the Women's Health Study It now has been completely debunked, and basically back in the day, my parents' generation, for example, and beyond that, most women used to be on hormones, and then this women's health study came out and said it's too dangerous, cardiovascular disease, high risk. Well, the reality of that study in hindsight is that those women were 60 years plus. They had been post-menopause for 10 to 15, sometimes 20 years. And they had plenty of other health factors that were indicating towards those disease states.
Yeah.
So it wasn't actually correlated with the hormonal therapy.
Yeah.
And they put me in that bucket because my mother had breast cancer. And so they put me as high risk. And my grandmother had had ovarian cancer. So I just dropped into that bucket, and they said, hormones are not for you.
Yeah.
Go home.
And you're like, help me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went for a long time with no hormones. And then I just was so miserable. I started to do alternative healthcare and functional medicine and study holistic health. And I slowly started dabbling in it. But again, it took a really long time, really up until 5 years ago, for me to really be like, okay, I'm figuring this out. This is a high priority for me. And again, I want to optimize my health. So I'm going to figure this out. And, finding the practitioners and the resources and all that stuff. Now it's mainstream conversation. Flash forward to the year 2026. It's mainstream conversation.
Well, and we're continuing that, like.
It makes me so happy. Yeah, we're part of that movement. And there's so many highly intelligent scientists, female scientists, and doctors. And I'm not saying the males aren't in on it too, but like women have really taken this on, medical women and professional and scientist women, to figure this stuff out. And it's awesome.
Well, it's been under researched. So the amount of funding underfunded, so it's been under researched for so long. It's like, oh, and now people are really throwing. So let's stay on track with like women who are, let's give them some signs and symptoms, like when
God,
either.
You want to read the symptom list? It's depressing. No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
I'll add anything that you forget.
And no, you don't have to check every box to still look at your hormones, right? You check one of these boxes, it's like, start a conversation, right? And it doesn't have to be redlining, this doesn't have to be extreme, because you're a big fan of like, before it gets to, like you said, like stage 4, like get on it, right? Optimize. So what are the earliest signs of hormone imbalance, either in perimenopause or something that, what should be?
Well, honestly, I know you have a little symptoms list, but there's about 30 to 40 symptoms. So there's lots of things that you would never think of that are connected to hormonal disruption and your ovaries going offline specifically. I mean, but the big things are what most women kind of identify with, I should say. They're maybe big or small for whoever it is, right? But like it's night sweats, hot flashes. And you can flash during the day. Lots of women flash during the day, disrupted sleep, weight gain, brain fog, and then just not having drive, whether it's sexual drive or just drive, life drive, motivation, feeling really emotionally turbulent, which is all makes sense if you understand how the hormones work. And you see that they're literally like a tidal wave or a roller coaster is happening during perimenopause, which could last for 1 to 10 years, by the way. Okay, that's a long time to be suffering.
Wow. Yeah.
That feels like shit. And any of those things, plus the other 20 things, if they are actual symptoms that you're experiencing, then you need to be like, I wonder if I'm in perimenopause.
Yeah.
Now you're still menstruating. So it's not like during perimenopause, you have to be spotting or have to be irregular or whatever. That doesn't have to be happening at all. You can be totally menstruating. It can be very normal for you, whatever normal is for you, right? Because again, that's completely individual. And you can still be experiencing these things at any level, scale 1 to 10. And any of those should be like, I wonder if there's a shift going on in my body.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say it is, because of course it is.
Depending on the age, so what's the earliest age that people, like you said, you were what, early 40s or late 30s? You started to have some symptoms?
I was late 30s, but it is recorded. There's women in their 20s, honestly. So that can happen, but that's not normal. It's usually about 35. So mid 30s ish to mid 40s. And then the average age of menopause. So menopause is a day in your life, one singular day, where you have no longer menstruated for a 12-month period prior. And that average age is 51 in the United States. It's different in other countries.
Nailed
but that number don't mean shit. No, I don't want people to get attached to that and be like, well, I'm not 51. So when I'm 51, I'll go into the doctor's office.
That's just an average. Totally. You could be a high achiever doing it like you. 30, late 30s, going in.
An overachiever in this area. But also what I learned for myself, and something that I think is really, really important, the more research and study that I do and the more knowledge I get about what's coming out in science, is, you have to proactively work on this stuff.
Yeah.
What I experienced is I got so depleted. It took me forever to come out of that valley. I mean, I was in a dark valley, right? So, and I just started taking testosterone fairly recently. And I mean, mine was at 0. Okay, that's not okay.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
And so 0, if you start at 0 and you're trying to get to 100, it's going to take a long ass time for you to get to 100, because doing hormones, however you decide to take them into your body, is incredibly nuanced. And then depending on the other state of your health, like what's the function of all my systems in the body to even process these hormones? Right. Because I don't want to become estrogen dominant, right? I want to have this connection between these hormones to be working in sync. And this is so individual over time, so they can get up to what I would like to see as my own personal baseline. And again, that's a unique number.
So I'm just going to not rattle off some symptoms just so we can get them, in people's minds. So you mentioned a bunch of these. So brain fog, anxiety, sleep disruption, night sweats or hot flashes during the day, or what do they call them in Australia? Flushes, hot flushes, weight gain, rage or irritability, low libido, right? Exhaustion, hello, cycle changes. I have a friend that went from, she's every time it's 24 and now or it was 21 and now she's at 24. I have friends that like skipping, some are bleeding more, so like changes. The cycle is changing, right? It's getting longer, you're missing some. Joint pain, that was a surprise for me. Depression, like I think emotion, right? Loss of motivation and dry skin and hair. That one's, I checked about like 8 of those when I was going through it.
So. Hair loss.
Oh my God, the hair loss was crazy. I'm just starting to get a little back up here. I'm happy about that. But yeah, totally. Okay, and so again, let's talk about the treatments and therapy, because there's HRT, or maybe that's not what it's called anymore. I think you told me there's something else.
Yeah, they don't use the term replacement anymore, and it's because you're not replacing what your body was naturally doing, right? So you're either taking bioidentical hormones or synthetic hormones, whatever the hormones you're taking. You're simply supporting its hormone support, like we're supplementing with, like we would take vitamins. Okay, I'm going to take vitamin C, but am I eating an orange? No, I'm not. I'm taking the vitamin C. Am I taking the omega-3 or am I eating salmon? Right? So you can kind of think of it that way. So they just don't call it replacement. You're never going to get to the body's natural way it was at 25 again, if you're 55. And so having that kind of in your head is just not healthy, and so medical professionals have kind of done away with that terminology.
And then you started to touch upon, so like, what are the most common treatments? And I think one thing I want to, or what I've experienced, and you tell me if this is the case, is bioidentical is a little more costly, and you don't get bioidentical from, let's say, a prescription from your regular Western medicine doctor. Would you say that's accurate, right? Like you have to go to a specialist.
Like compounded creams, or like you were mentioning, the pellets. So most of those things, a traditional GYN or MD is not going to probably prescribe, and your insurance probably wouldn't pay for those, but they are available. So the pellets go under the skin, and basically the challenge can be, again, it's totally personal, that you're putting in a mega dose of whatever the thing is, and then over time it's slowly dripping into your system. So you can easily become overwhelmed, especially with something like an estrogen or a testosterone, which are very powerful hormones. All of a sudden I have a 6-month dose you just put in my butt.
I know.
I mean, I might freaking win some gold medals, but I could also be a lunatic.
Mm,
and go off the rails very easily, right? Like
mm,
some too much of these hormones
mm,
can also be problematic, or like we discussed, having too much estrogen on board
mhm,
at one time in your body, and your progesterone and your testosterone not able to balance that can
mhm.
be problematic.
And I definitely think that there's really good experts out there, professionals I'm pretty sure, as I remember the person who used to drive 2 hours, this was, 10 years ago that I'm speaking about this. I'm sure it's changed, but I think he was getting a blood test every time he was going. So like he
Oh God, I hope so.
was monitoring it like on the weekly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it was very, but that was not a 6 month shot. That was a once a week shot. So these 6 months, I don't know the monitoring of that. So that's people who want bioidentical, or you want, let's say, the concierge level, maybe the super size me instead of optimize, you want super size. Okay. And then what other ways can you administer or receive estrogen, progesterone, testosterone? What do
Yes, we
you?
talked about compound creams too, right? So a cream or a gel. So
Mhm.
creams and gels are very common, and you basically
And
spread
that's
that
usually
on your
low
body.
dose. That's usually like low dose stuff, right? Like I've had.
It's low dose over time, and then it can be progressed. So that's normally what would be a standard experience was with a good practitioner. You get a very small amount, see
Mhm.
how you do, see how you do this. This does take a lot of feedback
Yeah,
between
yeah,
the
yeah,
receiver and the provider to be like, hey, not just is there something in my blood or saliva test, because there's a saliva test too, the Dutch test. What's showing up in that, but like, how do I feel?
yeah.
Am I feeling better? Do I notice any difference? Like I was on an estrogen patch for probably a freaking year, and I was like, I'm not noticing anything. Nothing is
Mm,
happening.
mm,
What's going on?
mm.
And I was like, it's not sufficient.
It's
And
not
finally, at
enough.
the end, I just had to go in and say, no, let's go. I
Yeah,
had to really, yeah, kind of pound the desk a little bit and
yeah.
get.
And I've
I
had
did the same
both.
thing recently with testosterone. She
Yeah.
gave me
Well,
such a small dose, and I was like, but I'm literally freaking at 4, and I'd like to be at 100. So how long is it going to take me to get to 100?
you're like lathering it all over.
So I am pretty highly educated on this enough, and it's also my own body. I'll do whatever the hell I want, by the way. So I double dose. Okay. And I was like, yep, 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 here we go, here we go, here we go. And then I
Yeah.
went and got the blood work. And then sure enough, I was up to 80. And I was like, okay,
Good.
if I had stayed at her dose for
Yeah.
6 months to a year,
Yeah.
I'd maybe be at 20.
Yeah. Not
This is a
good.
year in my life. I don't
I know.
really have many, many years to be like figuring this out, because I already am a little bit behind the 8 ball. I'm
Yeah.
57 this year.
Yeah, like
Let's go.
and you want your libido, you want your energy, you want their brain, like you want these symptoms like optimized for well-being, right? Like get
Yeah. So
yourself back
other
up.
countries are doing tests on this all the time. So if you want to read lots of science coming out of Australia and Sweden, and some
Mm,
other countries are far more advanced than us on this. But there was just a recent study. I can't remember the name of it. Dr. Kelly Casperson talks about it on her podcast, and it was testosterone. She's the leading expert in testosterone. So we'll give the experts'
mm,
names at the end.
mm-hmm.
So get a pen and paper, whoever's listening to this.
Yeah.
But this recent study came out. This was fascinating. So it was in older females who had hip fractures, bone fractures, basically had fallen and injured themselves because low bone density, low muscle mass, all the things that hormones are supposed to be doing. So in the process, they treated, and this was a huge study, it was thousands of women. Half of the women in that kind of recovery period, if you will, with testosterone, and half with a placebo. And the ones that had the testosterone, after they had recovered from their fall, surgery, or whatever, were given walking tests, so brisk walking tests. And it was extraordinary, extraordinary the amount of muscle that they retained, bone density that they retained. So they were 60% faster and more
Wow.
resilient and more capable of power output from their physical body than the
Wow.
placebo females.
Damn.
Okay,
Damn.
that means, am I using a walker? Am I using a cane? Am
Right?
I in a wheelchair now? Could I
Yeah.
possibly be bedridden at this
Mm-hmm.
point because I have
Mm-hmm.
fallen so many times or whatever all?
Yeah. Wow, wow,
What
wow.
the hell?
I
Okay,
know. Get the memo, people. Get the memo. Good, good,
that's
good,
some
good.
cool
So
stuff,
women
dude.
too. All right. So one thing I just want to throw in there a couple of examples so you explained. So I've been on the estrogen patch. You had the too low. I need more. I started on 0.0375 of the patch twice a week. And I was like, and I forget what I was still experiencing at the time, but I said, oh, I think I want to try the 0.05. Or you know what happens too, at least in my area, California, is they run out of the damn stuff.
No.
There was a couple months where I was like, Doc, okay, I literally had a friend in San Diego ship it to me. Like I had to like send it to the pharmacy down there. I was like, ship that shit to me, whatever. Gotta get those hormones. And then it wasn't down there. I was like, what the hell? So I asked the doctor to bump me up to 0.05 because I was like negotiating with the local pharmacy. I was like, so do you have 0.05 in stock? Do you have 0.3? All of it. And so I was like, okay, we got 0.05. I was like, bing, hit send, get that. So did that for a little bit. And I was like, well, I'll clip some off, right? And I was like, well, and I think to start, I was like, well, let me see how 0.05 does for me. Not good. Did not like I can't remember what the symptoms were, but I was like, this isn't good for me. I think one of them was bleeding, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so I could
wow,
tell.
you had breakthrough bleeding. Interesting.
Yeah, I think there was like, I was like, oh, okay. And then some cramping. I was like, back down. So, I clipped it and just cut off some of it until this came back in stock. And I tell you, I go between different pharmacies because this stuff still is, so that was one thing.
The reason there was a shortage is menopause is having a moment.
Yeah. So
and more women are being empowered, so they are a little behind production.
Get on. So we probably shouldn't put this episode out until I make sure there's enough stock out there. I'm just kidding. I'll stock up.
Patches.
So just know that and you went for a year. I would not go for a year of what I was experiencing. I'd be like, oh, nope, doc, let's go back down or do something, or like you put more on. The other thing that I experienced with the project, and so I went into my OB, had the whole PAP and all that stuff. I'm in menopause, and I was like, yeah, I got all the XYZ, like all the symptoms of low testosterone. And she's like, well, we really don't do that here. And I was like, oh, for frick's sake! So got to go see someone else. Anyway, so that can happen. Not that that happens everywhere. Anyway, and then the other one was, I do want to mention, you can. So progesterone is one that creams of low dose are available over the counter. I don't know at what maximum, whatever, but I can remember an excellent naturopath that I was seeing. This was when I was perimenopause, before perimenopause. And he was like, I just had like painful periods and bleeding and stuff. And you can have progesterone at certain parts of your cycle too, can help with the painfulness or whatever. And that's a whole nother topic of like, just having irregular periods, having painful periods, all of that stuff. That there's whole science about like what your hormones need, what you need to be doing to support your hormones at those periods as well.
Well, let's just double click on this for a hot second, because if you think about what perimenopause is, it's reverse puberty.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So everybody seems to, well, not everybody, but a bulk of the population can have a conversation about puberty and can identify with puberty. And so if you think about what a girl is going through in puberty, a lot of times we do have females, it's very common now, that are having challenging periods in every kind of thing under the rainbow is happening, right? For lots of reasons we won't get into right now. But anyway, they go to their doctor and the doctor will put them on birth control, even if they're not sexually active or whatever. They'll put them on hormones to help regulate the symptoms of really hardcore puberty periods and all of the hormonal chaos that might be happening, skin issues, blah, 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 right? So really what we're talking about is perimenopause is the reverse. Hormones are coming on raging and, when you're in puberty, and now they're depleting, they're going offline.
Yeah.
So it's so kind of fascinating that you were so proactive about whoever you were working with, about let me help you be more comfortable with these cycles over your time. And a lot of women will go on birth control for their skin and also to regulate their periods for these kind of symptomatic things, not necessarily not to get pregnant or whatever. And they'll use IUDs and they'll use all kinds of other things. Yeah. So you've talked about the patch, you've talked about creams. I mentioned gels.
And progesterone does come orally. So you and I think you do it too. So I'm on 100 mg of the progesterone at night in a tablet or a little pill, and the patch, twice a week. So that little combo is like the sweet spot for my body anyway.
Yeah, and it's so unique. Some people need the estrogen and they don't need progesterone yet. Some people need progesterone and they have too much estrogen. Right. Again, that's that unopposed concept I was talking about estrogen flying around, and the progesterone's like, well, there's 10 of me and there's 1,000 of you. I'm kind of overwhelmed here. I'm not sure who to attach myself to.
Yeah, so the rest just goes and stocks up somewhere,
It
right?
stores in body fat,
Yeah.
which is a huge bummer. And now we
Yeah.
have all kinds of other challenges going on
Mm.
around that.
Hmm.
We should just talk real briefly about cancer patients. So a lot of times it's very common for women to be told they cannot take hormones. That is also no longer true. It is very unique to the individual. Your oncologist is obviously the expert. There are expert oncologists in women in perimenopause and menopause and hormones. So those people do exist. It is now a subspecialty of oncology.
Mm.
Shh.
Love it.
Thank you, Lord.
Love it.
So if that is you, find those resources. They are available. There is research, there are studies, and it is very nuanced. But there's so many things that the female who is either in cancer treatment or is a survivor can be doing. One thing we didn't mention was vaginal estrogen,
Oh, right.
vaginal DHEA. So these are, again, topicals that go on your parts, your lady parts, and that actually doesn't go into free circulation into your blood. It is a targeted therapy for that soft tissue that is depleted. And that can lead to not only a lot of discomfort for the female, okay, but bladder infections, urinary tract infections, your rear end parts. So all of those parts down there are tissues that need to be supported, and they're greatly supported on a cellular health perspective from these hormones.
Hmm.
And so lots of people maybe can't take an oral or a patch or whatever, but they can treat their specific parts.
Hmm.
And that is a freaking game changer. And any good urologist or any good doctor will also prescribe those.
Mm. Nice, nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are there any? So, you alluded to, I just want to put out there. So, any big misconceptions about hormone replacement theory? Because therapy or hormone supplement theory, now we're calling it. Thank you for clarifying that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Because I mean, you and I remember when you were going through your phase of like really studying this, and you're like firing off these things to me, and you're like, almost like you should be on estrogen forever. Not, I don't think that's what you said, but like that's what I interpret as like look at this not as like just during perimenopause or whatever, but like it supports so much. So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about getting, people that just aren't doing it are like they've heard about the old studies and haven't been brought up? Anything else?
A big one is people that have cancer risks. Like I was a cancer risk patient. I wasn't a cancer patient or cancer patient. So that's a big, no longer true, no longer real. There are plenty of things that can be done, and it's very unique to the individual. And of course, the relationship they have with their oncologist and their, it's all, very specialized stuff. And I ended up actually, by the way, this is a side note, but having a DNA test specifically to see my cancer risks because I was put into this bucket and not able to be looked at a certain way. And I have 0.0 of those particular DNA elements in my physical makeup to put me in that bucket. And I would have lived in that bucket my whole life. So anyway, that was a total rant, but I had to share that.
Well, that's helpful. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. So biggest
Age is a total false bullshit thing.
Yeah.
You're not old enough yet. When I went in and I was having some challenges and going back on hormones and trying to work out some things, and I would go to my regular MD, not to be confused with my gynecologist. So first of all, women, please, your MD is not a gynecologist.
Yeah.
Okay. MDs love you. You're amazing. You know a lot about a lot of things, but they know, this much about all the things because they're a general medicine doctor. Yeah. Okay. They don't specialize in your hormones and your lady parts. So if you're using them to do that work on your body or to do those tests on your body, that probably is not the right decision. And it's definitely not going to be nuanced enough for you to get the care that you really need. So find a qualified gynecologist who specializes in hormones. And then if you have other issues, right, urology is a whole specialty. So if stuff is going wrong down there, like that's a urologist, if your gut microbiome, it's a gastroenterologist. So there's people who specialize in these things. Or you can go to functional medicine. Obviously, I've done that. You do that quite a bit. So being in
And
the
there's
right
also
hands.
hormone specialist female, like practitioners outside of, let's say, a hospital or a
Mhm.
MD, like they belong to a medical group or something. There's, like even I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I've heard in my area, there's a Oriental medicine practitioner that prescribes female all the hormones, right? If you will, like does,
Totally.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, there's amazing practitioners. I mean, generally those are out of pocket. Not a lot of insurance will
totally.
cover that, but it's your freedom to choose whoever your team's going to be.
If you can
And,
optimize, optimize. Like if you can afford it or whatever, like get it
but even
where.
if you cannot, go in informed to said doctors. So I have a cardiologist. I go in informed about things specific to my menopausal body and stage and blah 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 related to my cardiovascular health.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same with honestly, my gastroenterologist and gut
Mm-hmm.
microbiome and all these things. I go, so here's all the things going on hormonally. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because otherwise this is not their specialty.
Mm-hmm.
So you coming in as the informed patient and the empowered patient is really, really important, right?
Yeah, and
And then,
it's
yeah, not having a timeline. It's going to happen whenever it's going to happen. And by the way, I just said perimenopause can last 10 years. So, hey, have fun with that. That's a long ass time.
yeah, totally. Oh, no, no,
Right.
no. Okay. So anything about labs, like any particular tests they should or shouldn't take, or your take on it is some test for that. And my understanding was like it's symptomatic, like make when you feel better, that's the right level or something. But are there labs they should be asking for or
It's not that labs are worthless, but they're a snapshot in time,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's very challenging to get labs once a year at your annual gynecologist exam when you get
That's
your pap
true.
smear and you get your breast exam and think that for the next year my labs will look just like that.
Totally.
Really?
On the
Because
daily.
tomorrow at noon they will look totally different.
On the daily too, because women, cycle and stuff. You're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so don't
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily,
So
yeah,
there's a Dutch test, which is a saliva test. And a lot of functional medicine doctors will use the Dutch test.
yeah.
But in general, it is symptom scales. And then again, maybe micro dosing of things based on the symptom scale, and then getting feedback from the client, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's very individualized custom medicine,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense. I'm pretty unique. You and I don't have the same body,
Mm-hmm.
right? No two people have the same body. So I think it's important to be open to that and
Mm-hmm.
not feel like, well, the doctor gave me this, it didn't freaking work, so it's not for me or whatever,
Yeah. I
you know?
didn't feel any different or something. It's like, yeah, if you're still having the symptoms, like keep going. Keep
Keep
going.
going. But I mean, let's not, should we squeeze this in here now or what? Like, I just want to point out if you're not doing the basics for your
Mm.
health, and this, we've talked about the basics 1,000 times on this podcast,
Yeah.
how would you expect that this would be the solution?
Right.
So if you have other underlying health challenges and you're not working on your nutrition and your gut microbiome associated, right? Your exercise strategy for whatever age group, and there's all kinds of, this is Dr. Stacy Sims, this is her jam, and I'm all about it, and did study under her. Is like there are specific protocols for perimenopausal and menopausal women now.
Mm-hmm.
This is all scientifically based. If you are not the person who is like just sleep regimen and sleep hygiene is not a thing for you, your hormones are not ever going to regulate. I mean, there's so many things that are just
Yeah.
what we call foundational health.
Yeah.
To build that house,
Yeah.
you better be doing some basics. So if
Mental
you're,
and physical with the sleep deprivation too, because it
yeah, if
affects the
you're totally
brain.
stressed out and cortisol overloaded, if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, if you're smoking, I mean, so
Blood sugar.
clean up the house, get these basics
Mm-hmm.
under control, or at least some kind of strategy around working towards that on the health meter, moving in the right direction.
If you had to prioritize, those, so if we said sleep, training, working out, movement, protein or nutrition, stress management, alcohol reduction, blood sugar regulation, like what would be like one or two? Like if you start somewhere, make sure these two are like check check. Those are good. What would be your top
Sleep and
two?
nutrition,
Yeah,
and then exercise,
sleep and nutrition. Got it. Got it. Got it. Cool. Cool.
because those three are can be so disruptive in a really detrimental way. So talking about pro-inflammatory again.
Yeah.
So if I'm constantly inflamed
Yeah.
in my cellular being, and then I'm just pumping estrogen like there's no tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
I basically have a fire and I've decided to pour a can of gasoline on it. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I didn't sleep, or I consumed a bunch of crap, or I poured booze on it, or I didn't exercise, you know. So again, yeah, those are really just like foundational things. Mm-hmm. And there's like foundational what to avoid and then what to do, you know, kind of in different categories. But
and I would just say two things that, so I went through, you know me and my passion for the gut microbiome. So I went through a test. I did a gut microbiome test, which is like a little kit that you can order and you send your poop away. And it's not a lot, you just send a little bit and then they give you all this information, which turned out fantastic. I was like super stoked. And there's a little upgrade you could do to get a little pellety thing or a little monitor in your arm, and it regulated my blood sugar and a couple other things, and it actually told me during sleep and all this stuff. I learned so much through that. So two things that I just want to add here as a part of my journey. I was on that in perimenopause. So I was, you know, not a heavy drinker, but I was drinking at night and weekends and stuff like that. So what I learned blood sugar wise, sleep regulation wise about alcohol consumption. I don't care if you're doing 1 glass of red wine at night or 5, whatever, like alcohol will F you up sleep wise, right? And the other is, like, it's kind of surprising, is cannabis and things like that. I wasn't, but I've heard that also. So just know that there's things in THC that people think that they're helping it with sleep, like it mellows you out or whatever, but you might look at that because studies have shown otherwise. And then also for me, it was protein, because I think the blood sugar and the protein levels, because I do pescatarian, but I tend to eat, and I have a thing about eating earlier in the day, or I stop my meals, you know, earlier in the day, not going to sleep full. I was just having these drops in blood sugar and all this stuff, especially like during menopause. It was like frightening how low things were getting blood sugar wise. Because
was it happening in the middle of the night or early morning?
Yeah.
Waking you up.
Yeah. So, but having both pieces of information, you know, like looking at hormones and looking at blood sugar and, you know, nutrition and stuff, I was like, wow, this is amazing to have that. I would just everybody I know, I'm like, you should try that just at least once, because I think I had it for 2 weeks or a month or something. I was like, everybody should do it at least once in their life, just because you would be shocked what you can learn. So, especially if you're looking at either menobelly, where you have extra weight gain, and it's like, what, you know, like it will tell you things that are contributing to that you might not know, or you're just looking at, you've got extra weight as a lifestyle, you know, it can tell you some of the foods that are probably causing you these spikes that could lead to pre-diabetes, you know, pancreatitis, you know, things like that, right? It's just amazing. So anything else that during your learning or your journey that either surprised you or you'd want to pass along? You've shared a lot of stories, which was super helpful. So.
I mean, yeah, no, this is a topic we could talk about forever, right? So basically, if we're just kind of circling back to,
or what are you doing now? What are you doing now that you wish you'd started earlier? Like what do you?
All the things.
Do it sooner. Yes, right. Don't wait.
If I hadn't have dug myself that hole for those 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, because I had a lot of health impacts from that. Yeah. Polycystic fibroids alone, like I would have them burst. I ended up in the emergency room. They were so disruptive to my life. Like there's so many things, and I just didn't feel good. And here I was really trying to perform at a high level, running a business, having a family, being an athlete, all these things. I feel like that's BS, right? So now at this age, I do pretty much all the things. I'm trying to think if there's anything I don't do. No, I do. I have a hormone test. I take progesterone at night. I'm on testosterone. I kind of wish I'd started that earlier too.
Me too. Yeah.
Anyway, the science is relatively new on that, so that's cool. And again, I went into my doctor, OBGYN, who prescribes my other hormones, by the way. And I said, so anyway, hey, I'm back. Remember me? Now I want to talk about testosterone. Yeah. The way I went in this time, just, you know, you get such a small window of time with these people. Yeah. I literally just went in and said I had all the symptoms. I don't have all the symptoms, but I know how important this hormone is. And I was like, hey, see these 10 things? I got these 10 things. Mm-hmm. Can I get that? And she's like, okay. Didn't even blink. So I'm not saying I was lying. I might have been exaggerating a little bit. But again, I know how critical that is to my health. I didn't want to have a battle
And she's a
like a
little bit behind
practitioner.
this. She's a little bit behind on the 8 ball on that, you know.
Yeah, she gave me the micro dose. I told you, and I was like, double up, double up. Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
So
Uh,
anyway, let's just touch on one other thing too. Plenty of women don't want hormones and maybe can't utilize hormones. So I mentioned some cancer patients cannot, and that's very nuanced and super, super
10 to 1, they're not listening
specialty.
to this. They wouldn't have clicked on this if they were. Yeah, they wouldn't be
Well,
listening.
it's possible, but if they are not sure or not a fan of it for whatever reason,
Mm.
there are adaptogens. So that's a
Hmm.
whole subcategory of adaptogens
Hmm.
that are, they've been around forever. You
Design.
mentioned Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they've been around for freaking ever. Okay, in native and Chinese medicine, and there's plenty of other
Mm-hmm.
modalities out there way before Western medicine had even a shingle to put up. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so if you want to research that, under my certification with Dr. Stacy Sims, that was an entire part of the program was just on adaptogens.
Hmm.
So,
Can you name one or two, like something that
oh,
would?
ashwagandha. I mean, yeah, black cohosh. There's all these things, wild yam, blah, blah, blah. So there's all these things depending on what your symptoms are. So those are specifically for symptom support. And if the female, they're not putting bioidentical hormones back, they're simply for symptom support, right? So if you say, I don't want to try and put back bioidentical hormones to optimize, but I want these symptoms to go away, you can go that direction. And then you just drill down on that knowledge and information. It's pretty much everywhere. There's whole books on it and whole programs on that. I wanted to mention that.
So, there's probably a couple of different people that are listening. Either they're peri and maybe they're having some funky things going on, and you were talking about people that aren't doing anything because they're sort of like not taking it for granted, but they don't think it's serious enough, and you want to speak to them, right? So what would you say if somebody's like, yeah, they got one or two of these on the list, maybe they're not a raging 10, but but
Well, I come across women a lot who want to talk about it. They have a curiosity, but the feedback I hear probably 50% of the time is like, it's not time for me yet. When it's a problem, I'll deal with it. Or I do have people that have other health challenges and things, cancer patient survivors and whatever. And like recently, I was blown away by one I was having a conversation with, and she's a breast cancer survivor and she carries the estrogen dominant breast cancer gene and all that stuff. So, legitimately that's concerning and she needs to talk to a specialist about that. But I did ask her about her vagina and the health of her urinary tract and her private parts and her sexual life. And she hadn't even had a pelvic exam in 5 years.
Oh, okay.
And I was blown away.
Okay.
Because she wasn't even looking at that body part, wasn't even thinking about that body part. And I was like, whoa, because it's very common for older women to get urinary tract infections. And actually, as females age and become less continent and less psychologically or physically able, it can actually be really dangerous because they get these infections and it travels to their brain. Like, this is a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we need to immediately get on that.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, you can do topical vaginal estrogen. Yeah. And she was like, what? Right. So, or the female who just says, it's not time yet. I am going to deal with this when it's a problem. That's not proactive healthcare. That's not optimizing how you feel in this one body that you get to own and your one life. That's not me saying, Sam, you're my highest priority. My value system is my health, my fitness, my capability, my contribution to society, my human connection. That's me not living by my values. If I were to say, hey, I'm going to wait till you're sick or it's a real problem and then we'll talk about it. It's just not, that's just a no.
So what if a woman is perimenopause because she's, in the age range that we talk about, let's say 40s, late 30s, 40s, but it's not like severe, would you still say, go talk to your OB, like tell them what you're having? Would you think that that's a valuable conversation, or like we said, wait till later? Or I think I know your answer.
It's an imperative conversation.
Yeah. Anytime it starts to change, I would say. Right?
Well, lots of women don't have a lot of symptoms. I mean, not lots. Plenty of women don't have a lot of symptoms. And because genetically and lifestyle and whatever, they are lucky.
Mm.
Cool. You be a lucky one. Yay, you. Okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the ovaries are not shutting down,
Yeah.
and that realistically, your physical body and every system within your physical body on a cellular level is now depleted of critical hormones. So even
Right.
if you're not symptomatic,
Mm-hmm.
it is happening inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And yours is just a 2 out of 10 instead of those of us who are 9s out of 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Aging is happening, and all of the things associated with that decline of said symptoms is happening. So the thing is, women are just living so much longer. They're outliving men. They're healthy, happy. They have full lives ahead of them into their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And that wasn't a thing for a really long time. If we look back a couple generations, right? Or if we look at prior generations that didn't get the health support they needed,
Mm-hmm.
they died of other diseases.
So if we look at the other spectrum, so they're maybe postmenopausal and they're like, oh, okay, on estrogen or not, you're now introducing, even if you are on estrogen, maybe have a conversation and look at the symptoms around testosterone because maybe there's a gap there that, just aging and feeling exhaustion or limpness, just like low libido, those types of things. Like, oh, I'm just, getting older or whatnot. Like it's a natural thing. You're saying no, like you can still optimize that as you're.
Well, there's two things. I want to speak to that age thing because you said, what are the, misconceptions? It's also not too late to go on hormones. So you will be told that by your doctor if they're not educated. They will say, well, you're past your prime. When I went to my regular MD here, that's no longer my MD. I should side note, obviously, I fired that MD. But anyway, when I went to them and I told them, oh, I'm on hormones or whatever, that's cool. You can be on that. Just make sure you go off at 65. I said, why would I be doing that? This was the original women's health study that they totally debunked. She was trained that in Western medicine MD school whenever she went to there, and that's in her head, and that's what she's telling women. And I said, that's no longer true. It's been proven that's not real. You need to go back and reread the science. And she argued with me. And I said, you're fired.
So what is the truth? So women can stay on past 65 is what you're
they
saying.
can go on it late
They can go on it
if
late.
they missed the window, and they can stay on it. So that's something to really have savviness about. And then the other thing I wanted to say that is just like an overarching, really important reason that somebody should early on or later on consider these therapies if you are remotely interested is your cardiovascular. The high probability of a woman dying is going to be cardiovascular disease, or it's going to be cancer. Okay. So cardiovascular disease, there's a whole book on this and a whole specialist, and I'll read those people off, about all of the nuances around these hormones and how they actually support a healthy cardiovascular system and combat cardiovascular disease. Same with cancer.
Yeah.
Pro-inflammatory, hormonal dysregulation, high estrogen cancers, etc. Bone and muscle breakdown, etc. And then neurodegenerative.
I was just going to say, what about all the, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's that we're seeing? Yeah.
I mean, this is all the new science that's coming out. It's mind freaking blowing.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in getting those diseases, okay, then let's be really slow to come to the conversation. But if you're not interested in those, start educating yourself and say, what am I doing? Because all of these things might have a genetic component, but the genetic component generally is pretty small. It's 20 to 40%, depending on the type of cancer, the type of disease. But we are told that you've got the genetics for it, so there's nothing you can do. It's completely not true.
So if you're 35 and above and you're a female, you should be having a conversation with your doctor around hormones, whatever.
Yeah.
Just like
if you're younger and having symptoms, you should still be doing it. But yes, if you're asymptomatic and you're in that bucket, that window 35 plus, then just start having the conversations. And if you find your practitioner is resistant to those conversations or has some ideas that may or may not be true, you need to go educate yourself and then go back informed or find a new practitioner.
So it's not too late, and get on it if you haven't already gotten on it. Good. Okay. All right. So So, and why do we need to advocate for themselves in this area? You've given a couple of examples. Like I had one that, said no to testosterone the first time, so I'm going to someone else. I'm like, okay, if you won't prescribe it, then you've had some that, said you should get off of estrogen at 65, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not throwing these people under the bus. They're not educated, and they're not educated on the latest science. And this is all science.
Mm,
It's just not, people trying to sell us stuff or making things up. The
mm,
people who are doing the science and doing all the research are not making money off of this. So, it and medicine is science.
mm-hmm.
The science of the human body.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but some practitioners are uncomfortable with it. And I get it, maybe liability or lack of knowledge or whatever the reasoning is. So just, navigate it gracefully and exit the building,
Mm-hmm.
or try and re-educate them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did. I like my gynecologist. I'm happy with her in every other way and shape or form. She just wasn't really she wasn't resistant to the testosterone, but she wasn't as educated as I kind of like her to be. So I educated myself and went in empowered.
Great, great. So let's do a couple of rapid fire questions. So what would you say maybe is the most misunderstood hormone of those? What's maybe most misunderstood?
Oh my gosh. Well, currently I'd have to say testosterone.
Testosterone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the most overlooked symptom? What do you think?
The most overlooked symptom.
Yeah. What do people...
In my experience, it is soft tissue. So it's sore
breakdown.
joints, damaging of joints like tendonitis, torn this, dislocated this, or even stress fractures. So anything in the bones and the joints and the connective tissue completely.
What's one thing women are told is normal and it isn't? What do you think they should?
One thing?
Yeah.
I got to give you two things.
Okay.
One is that you're going to get fluffy and there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's bullshit.
Right. Right.
And then the other is that you're just aging, and therefore, because of your aging, your sexual function and desire, and your desire for living life and joy and all of that stuff are just going to wane with age.
Yeah.
Literally, I had a doctor one time. I was like, "What did you just say? Have you lost your effing mind?" First of all, I was sad because I'm an empowered person, and I was like,
"Is that what
I'm
you're
telling
people?
You up right now?"
Yeah. Are you telling people that
you cannot say this to other women? Oh. You cannot be saying this. First of all, you shouldn't be thinking this, and you should not be brutalizing.
What was it? Do you remember what it was? How did he say it?
Yeah, that it was basically natural aging, and I shouldn't be concerned about it, and I should accept the slowing down of all of these things that make me me and bring joy to my life. I literally almost jumped off the table.
You can have a life that just goes, slides into home base.
And that's what I had to say. That might be choices that you're making for yourself, because we were about the same age. And it was like I had just turned 50 or something like that. I said, but that's unacceptable for me. It's not how I live my life and subscribe. And I really wish you wouldn't talk that way to any other woman again.
I know. All right. So what do you think is the one most impactful lifestyle change that they can make?
Oh, geez. There isn't one. It's those three that we said. So it's sleep.
Sleep. Yeah.
Right. Nutrition and exercise. Okay. Please.
Okay.
Please. I'm begging you.
All right. So let's hit that list of experts, books, podcasts, anything. Like who do we want to like give praise to that you guys should definitely check these people out?
There's so much good work in the world right now around this. We mentioned Dr. Stacey Sims 100 times, but basically that's fitness and exercise specific. So if you're into that, Dr. Vonda Wright, her book Unbreakable is remarkable. Dr. Vonda Wright, her book Unbreakable. And that is about bones and muscles and joints and connective tissue, because she operates on these women and puts them back together when they fall apart.
Got it.
Cynthia Thurlow is a nurse practitioner. She has a podcast called Everyday Wellness. And it's a pretty well-rounded podcast for all things perimenopause and menopause. She's great. I'm currently obsessed with Dr. Kelly Casperson, Casperson. She's freaking hilarious, and I could hang out with her every day. Okay. Her podcast is called You Are Not Broken.
Oh.
And she is a urologist, but her specialty really is in hormones and testosterone in particular,
Mm,
but hormonal therapies for
mm,
women. And she's hilarious. And how
mm.
she disseminates the information in the science is brilliant.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
The podcast, The Second Opinion by Dr. Sharon Malone, is great. Dr.
Mm,
Sharon Malone,
mm,
cardiovascular doctor.
mm.
Again, these are women at a very high level, very high
Sick.
educated,
Yeah.
who are now 50 plus, or they're in perimenopause, menopause, and they're like, hold up, not just for me, but for my women clients, I'm going to specialize in these things. Hers is called The Second Opinion.
Mm,
And then Dr. Mary Claire Haver, 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 she has the podcast called Unpaused.
mm,
And she's also great. And she's a doctor too. So these are all medical professionals
mm,
who study the research,
mm,
follow the science. And Dr. Stacey Sam, she's a PhD who does the actual research in science too. So highly educated women, highly empowering. I'll put all of them in the notes of the podcast so people can access those names or podcasts and see what's going on there. But there's so much great work going out there. It makes me really happy to be alive in this time.
I know. Thank gosh, and I just want to say, if you're listening this far, we would love to hear from you. Any comments that you have, any questions that you have, things that you want us to cover around this, if we can answer that, we would love to. There's just so much that we couldn't get to today. I think we covered quite a bit. We hit a lot of the same things over and over, which is our favorite, like the foundational, right? Like take care of your well-being and get into action, be proactive. I love this, like don't accept, let's say society or other people's expectation of normal as your normal, right? It's optimize. What's your takeaway? What's your one thing that you want people to take away from today?
What I am so passionate about right now, and what I'm finding is a common need, is just for people to be able to have a conversation about it. So we're having this conversation. Lots of people are having the conversation, but it still is not the norm.
Yeah.
Right? With your spouse, with your partner, with your doctor, with society, with your girlfriends. So I have these girlfriend cluster groups like you do. We have our little 18 posses, and I roll on up there on a regular basis. I'm like, so anyway, who's on hormones here? Who wants to talk about testosterone? And they're like, well, we're going to coffee and talking about testosterone. Yeah, we are. Because if you make it comfortable for all the players at the table, even the ones who are quiet and never say anything, like sometimes I just shoot out to these groups different podcasts or things I want them to read. And there's the quiet one in the room that's never going to talk to anybody about their vagina, but she's listening and she's getting information. And later they'll come back to me and go, damn, that was amazing. I learned a lot. Thank you for sharing or being willing to bring the subject matter to the table. Can I talk to you about this other thing? What about this? So now I've opened them up to a conversation about their body and their things that they considered private or socially unacceptable to talk about. And to me, that's freaking magic, dude. That's
totally.
Hells yeah.
Well, I think about the study that we're in around, a year to live, which is, basically bringing death out of the closet. It's like we're putting that on the table. And this is like your sexual, hormones, your well-being, female needs, men needs as well, and talking about it. I mean, like I have open conversations. I welcome it, especially when I was going through perimenopause. I was talking to everybody about it. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I am the person, I am advocating for this. I am the evangelist. I am here to learn as much as I can, have other people talk about it, ask me about it, and teach me about it, tell me how you're doing with it. So it's like, let's talk, because you could be having a symptom that you don't even realize is quite a symptom. That could be that. And a friend could help you, go, well, maybe that's your hormones. And you're like, I didn't think of that, So just get talking about it with friends, with other women, something, be in comfort and learn these excellent podcasts that you just shared. I'm sure there's fantastic episodes that you and I have both digested and loved. And, don't wait, right? Don't wait for level 10 symptoms or you're not sleeping for, 6 months or whatever. Like, hell no. Like I had a few hot flashes. I was like, I'm installing a fan. All right. That didn't do it. All right. I was like, I'm getting, I was like, nope, not dealing with this. Or, I'm dealing with this. I'm not living with this.
You don't have to live that way, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what anybody's trying to tell you otherwise, you actually don't have to live that way.
Exactly. Their normal does not have to be your optimal. Like, nope, thank you. That can be okay for you, but that's not okay for me. So we're all about optimize. Awesome. Team awesome here. Okay.
Totally, totally.
All right, let's close it up. What do you want to say to them before we wrap up?
How your beautiful perimenopausal, menopausal, aging body looks is not that damn important, but how it feels is.
Hmm. And every day is your opportunity to find your awesome. Yay.